Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate, and welcome back to another weather forecast discussion, this time for April 14th, 2024. We have our new face cam, which means we can be able to, I don't know, do whatever shenanigans we usually do with our face cam. And with our usual shenanigans, we're also going to be talking about the unusual shenanigans that is this severe weather. We have a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale for my neck of the woods. It is for portions of Pennsylvania and Ohio, as well as the surrounding areas. The main thing with this risk is actually going to be the hail and the tornadoes, but the localized tornado risk is likely going to be on the western portions of the Keystone State, heading off into northern West Virginia, as well as eastern Ohio. However, it will likely occur when there is still sunlight out, as storms will likely start to grow upscale as stuff starts to kind of transition. So it'll be more of, once again, a damaging wind and large hail threat that could potentially be possible. We are going to be talking about, however, the main risk that we've been mentioning for quite some time. This is Monday. This is tomorrow, April 15th, where we have a ginormous risk for severe weather across portions from the Dakotas all the way down into the southern plains, and we also have a little sneaky severe risk over here into portions of the mid-Atlantic. So folks that are in any of these areas here in the yellow or in the orange are definitely going to want to watch out for some severe weather. We have the threat for tornadoes that is possible here on Monday, but the whole thing about this is that there is a big question mark that is being placed on top of this risk, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that here in a bit. We mentioned in our last video that there's a good chance that some sort of significant severe weather can occur with this event, whether it is strong tornadoes, whether it is large hail greater than golf balls, or whether it is strong damaging winds greater than hurricane force. And the big thing with this risk is going to be the large hail. We've got some significant risks for large hail stretching from portions of Nebraska all the way down into Texas. Any place where storms can likely form, and the key word is any place where they can form, is likely going to produce some very large hail. So folks that are in any sort of warnings tomorrow, you guys are going to want to watch out. And of course, we're going to be covering this live here on the channel, so please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already. Now, here's an additional thing that we also are going to want to watch out for, because we have an additional risk for severe weather on Tuesday. We have another orange area here, a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, as well as a, once again, ginormous yellow area that extends from portions of the Midwest down into the Ozarks. So folks that are over there are definitely going to want to watch out, and the threat for significant severe weather could likely be over here across portions of Iowa, Missouri, and extreme western Illinois. So folks that are over there are going to want to watch out. And then we also have a transitioning phase from Tuesday into Wednesday, where the threat of severe weather will continue off into portions of the Ohio River Valley. So folks that are over into portions of Indiana, Kentucky, and the surrounding areas are going to want to watch out. So now we're going to want to take a look at the models here. Now, we're not going to be talking about tonight too much. Once again, just general thunderstorms with some severe weather that could exist in any of those areas of the yellow and the orange. So folks that are over there are going to want to watch. But I want to show you guys the jet stream here. This is from the Euro model, and I want you guys to kind of see with the timing of the top left-hand part of your screen how our jet stream starts to consolidate here and intensify as we transition from Sunday into Monday and then further on into Tuesday. Very strong wind shear here at the 500 millibar level, which is about 6 kilometers above ground level, and all of this is mainly consolidated over into portions of Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. So realistically speaking, we have a lot stronger wind shear that can be localized over in these areas, and this will likely show up into a bigger discrepancy or a bigger contrast between our winds that are at the surface and our winds that are once again 6 kilometers above ground level. So we're taking a look at our bulk shear here, which is once again the difference between those two levels. And you can see once we get from Monday afternoon into Monday evening, notice how we have a lot of significant winds that are localized over here into portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. What bulk shear does is it basically gives you an idea as to whether or not supercells could potentially be present, or if they're going to be weaker thunderstorms. Anything that is not red is likely going to be sub-supercell level, like microcells, mini cells, and stuff like that. Maybe a multi-cell mode. But anything that's stronger than that, once again, into the reds, the browns, even into some of the burgundy colors, that is where you could potentially see your stronger severe weather. And so you can see here in the late afternoon, early evening into the overnight hours, the mainly concentrated area of strongest bulk shear is going to be in areas here in Oklahoma and Texas. Now, there's also going to be some other areas that are over here into portions of Nebraska and even into Iowa, and northern Kansas is also going to maybe see some of that activity, but you don't really see it start to spread all over the place until you start to get into the overnight hours on Tuesday, even past midnight. So for the storms that will likely form here in the beginning of the day, when there's going to be a lot of instability, is going to be down into portions of Oklahoma and Texas, and they will likely be a little bit more severe. In addition, this is also going to show us where our storm relative helicity is. Now, this is where some healthy vorticity for tornadoes can be localized. And realistically speaking, you want anything that's in the green. If you find any greens and stuff like that across the same area that we've been talking about, then we're probably going to be talking about the threat for maybe some tornadoes within those storms. And you can see here by the 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central hours, we have a lot of vorticity that is centralized over portions of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. Even if you go back towards like the 6 o'clock and 5 o'clock time frame, even right along this boundary right here, there's a boundary that goes from Kansas all the way down through Oklahoma and down into Texas. There's some localized areas of some vorticity. So it is definitely present. We do have all of those factors here in the atmosphere. But there are some major issues with this event, and we're going to take a look once again with the HRRR model, and we're going to kind of show you guys our dry line here. All right, what we're doing is we're showing you guys how much moisture there is in the atmosphere, which, by the way, we have a plentiful amount of moisture across the board in this area. But the one thing about it with this is that we don't really have these little bulges within our dry line. We want to try and find these little dips in the dry line that start to form. Kind of see this down here towards the bottom part of our screen. We want to find that more in abundance. And the problem is we just don't. We don't really have an abundance of those areas of convergence. We want a lot of moisture to converge at a particular spot, and so that way you can get thunderstorms to form, and that is if you wanted them to form. But we don't really have that a whole lot, and when we start to get a little bit more convergence is when we start to, talk about things becoming a little bit more into the late evening, into the overnight hours. And so from a bulge area, from a perspective of convergence here, a dry line bulge as we like to call it, it's not really in abundance. And that's kind of the reason why thunderstorms are not really going to initiate here in the, say, traditional time frame. Now, I also want to take a look at things from an instability perspective here. We're taking a look at the mixed layer cape, which is honestly my favorite layer of cape that we use here. So we can take a look as we go in. We can go in, and you can see as we go from Monday morning into Monday afternoon, an explosion of instability occurs here, because that's what convective available potential energy basically looks at. Looks at how unstable your atmosphere is for thunderstorms to form, and we have a lot of it. So we have about, 2,800 joules per kilogram, maybe almost 3,000 joules per kilogram at most, and stuff, in some areas. You can see over here, even in Nebraska, we actually have about 3,000 joules per kilogram of convective available potential energy. But the problem is that we also have something else. We have a limiting factor in the atmosphere, and across our entire environment, pretty much, we have a capping inversion that is going to limit the rising of thunderstorms. This is stable air, so you can have both unstable and stable air in the same air mass. And unfortunately for some of our thunderstorms down south, oh boy, there is quite a lot of it. So there's not really a whole lot of wiggle room, if you will, for thunderstorms to kind of take advantage of that environment. And there's barely any wiggle room up here in the portions of Nebraska and Kansas. So this is going to be a very conditional tornado risk. This is going to be a very conditional thunderstorm risk. Why? Because if you don't have rising, if you don't have instability that can freely rise, then thunderstorms get limited to just storms. They produce thunder every now and then, and that's pretty much it. Maybe some small hail. But if you can't allow thunderstorms to freely do their thing, it's kind of like a prepubescent teenager. It's like they want to do their own thing and they want to be free from the clutches of their house. But if you can't, you don't let them, they're just going to continue to whine and moan and complain about life. That's just kind of how it is. And trust me, I should know, because not too long ago, I'm in my 20s. I kind of know how it feels. So it's very much so similar to these thunderstorms. They're going to complain and moan, and they're going to, do all sorts of stuff. But they're not going to be able to really do anything unless if this limiting factor sets it free. Now, there is a small catch here. All right, this is where things can start to get a little interesting weather dynamically. So everyone, put on your thinking caps. All right, we've got our 300 millibar wind shear right here. Why are we looking that high up in the sky? Because this can actually show us where some of our strong divergence aloft is. And when you usually have strong divergence aloft, then what happens briefly after it is the response of strong convergence at the surface. And so we have our divergence aloft, and then look at this, we got our dew points again. We got our moisture at the surface. So here's the thing, all right? When we backtrack a little bit in time, we're talking about the morning hours of Monday here, we can start to see that wind shear is starting to increase, but it's not overall that strong. And then once you start to see the kind of lighter greens and the oranges come in, that's when you can start to see maybe your stronger divergence aloft. The problem is that that's not exactly, getting it done. You want thunderstorms, at least in this case, to try and form a little bit sooner. And anywhere out in front of the yellow is where you can get a lot of your strong divergence. But the problem is it doesn't come in until a lot later on in the night. And so you're just kind of stuck with thunderstorms not forming up until nighttime, which means we're going to have a nocturnal thunderstorm threat. Here's the caveat. If this can move on through, if this jet streak can eject through the area a lot sooner, we're going to see thunderstorms that are going to start popping up a lot sooner as well. So this is the one thing to watch over for the next 24 hours. Depending upon how quickly this thing moves on through can determine as to how early initiation can be. But the one consistency here that we know of, thunderstorms are likely going to be a nocturnal threat. So what can be some of our timings here across this event? Well, let's take a look. Once again, timing the top left-hand portion of your screen. This is right around 5 to 6 Central. It's when we can start to see some thunderstorms form over here, north of Abilene, of course. And that'll continue to move about, whereas right around 7, maybe 8 o'clock Central is when we could also see some thunderstorms across northern portions of Nebraska. And these thunderstorms that are over here into portions of the Red River are really going to be kind of interesting to watch, because if you remember our vorticity, if we go back in the beginning here, sometime around 6 p.m., there's not really a whole lot of vorticity down here in the portions of Texas. It's all up here in the portions of Oklahoma. And so, realistically speaking, you don't get that vorticity until it starts to go further and further into the nighttime hours. And by then, we'll just have to see how thunderstorms continue to move on through. But the tornado threat doesn't really seem to be that much of a tornado threat until you start to get into the nocturnal, event. But you can see this plays on through. Once again, thunderstorms continue to exist. They move over also into portions of South Dakota. We have maybe some thunderstorms that extend from Kentucky all the way over into Iowa as well. That'd be along the warm front, so we probably would be seeing a lot more of our large hail and maybe a few strong downbursts and stuff like that. More thunderstorms continue to exist once again across portions of South Dakota before you start to see maybe the potential for some initiation past midnight somewhere over here in southern Nebraska, northern Kansas. That could be something to watch out for. But remember, this entire event over here from Nebraska into Kansas and Oklahoma, especially through an overnight threat, is going to be very, very conditional, all right? Depending upon how much limiting factor, how much stability there is in the atmosphere, is really going to determine as to whether whether or not you get your thunderstorms. And you can see we once again have some interesting activity here in the morning, some morning convection that's going to start to develop as we go over into Tuesday. And as this starts to transition from Monday into Tuesday, we're going to start to see a pretty widespread area of where we could see some severe weather. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Of course, you can see we get into the late morning, early afternoon hours. We start to see a massive line of storms start to move on through into portions of Iowa. And believe it or not, based off of what we have with our boundary here, because you can clearly see we have a lot of moisture out in front of this still, there likely could be some more thunderstorms, maybe a secondary wave that can occur back in behind those storms, as well as further down south into portions of Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, as well as into portions of Texas and Louisiana. So definitely something to watch out. I'm telling you guys, this is going to be a really interesting event that is going to unfold over the next few days. This event over here on Tuesday also has some convective available potential energy. So we are talking about some instability within this atmosphere as well. We could also be talking about, once again, some decent vorticity that is stretched across this area. This might be a little bit exaggerated in my honest opinion, but we still have some healthy vorticity for tornadoes to try and develop, even a little bit stronger up here into portions of, once again, Iowa and maybe even Missouri. And so definitely something to kind of see what are the timings are going to be like. All right, if storms end up becoming significant at the right time in the right place, we could be talking about one event potentially being more tornadic than the other. And I think there's just a little bit more certainty that tornadoes are probably going to happen on Tuesday rather than Monday. Now you can kind of see with our lower resolution of our NAM model that the remnants of these storms are going to move over into portions of Indiana and Kentucky. And then there's going to be a secondary wave that's going to move over, as well as potentially a new wave of thunderstorms that could try and develop across portions of the deep south. So watch out for these two waves. All right, this one over here in Illinois and Indiana all the way down to Kentucky. This one from Alabama all the way stretching back down towards Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the event down to the south is not going to really be as significant as the one to the north, and let alone that probably could be talking about, I'd say, a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale is my best guess. And so realistically speaking, the next two big events are going to be tomorrow, obviously on Monday, and then Tuesday as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like for the face cam. We got it back. We got it back in time for our live stream that's going to be happening tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching. All right, if you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media. Link is in the description down below. I will catch you guys tomorrow, guys. All right, I've got all sorts of cool stuff that I'm ready to tackle on with you guys as we are getting into the heart of severe weather season. So make sure you guys stick around. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.